Welcome to my channel, everybody. This is Rainer and this is Rainier Books. This is my book channel on YouTube. Willkommen, herzlich willkommen und willkommen till min kanal. First, I want to talk about Lawrence Wright, the non-fiction author, the journalist, who has been a very successful and a very good journalist. Lawrence Wright came into my circles when I first noticed Mr. Lawrence Wright. I bought a book of him from, I think it was 2006 or 2007, 5 years after the towers in New York crashed. And this book was The Looming Tower. I can put it in to the camera here. The Looming Tower is a book which is called Al-Qaeda's Road to 9/11. And this is a super brilliant account about 9/11. So I have no doubt that Lawrence Wright has done as much research as he did for The Looming Tower, also for his novel, which is called The End of October. I listened to the audio version of the book that is read by Mark Bramhall, a very well-known American actor who has become more kind of a specialist for audiobooks. He won 2 Audies. That's the Oscar, the Grammy, the Emmy, or the Tony for audiobooks in the United States. So Mark Bramhall has won 2 Audies. So he's a very well-renowned reader. And I listened to his reading. The End of October is a novel about a worldwide pandemic that is caused by a virus called the Congoli virus that breaks out in a camp in Indonesia. In comes Henry Parsons. Henry Parsons, he's one of the world's leading authorities on virology, on viruses. He's from the United States. He's the husband of Jill and the father of Helen and Teddy. An amazingly beautiful family that is living back in Atlanta in Georgia in the United States. Henry quickly realized he flies to Indonesia because there's this outbreak. People die. And Henry gets to Indonesia, he flies to Indonesia, and he soon realizes when he looks at the people who have died and the people who are sick, he understands that this virus is very dangerous. It could threaten the world since it's very contagious and it seems to be very deadly. One of the inmates of the camp in Indonesia, a man named Bam Bam, has sort of escaped. They couldn't trace him, they couldn't isolate him. He escaped, he went on a plane and couldn't be traced. So unluckily for Henry and the rest of the world, Bam Bam has traveled to Saudi Arabia on a passenger plane. He's going to Saudi Arabia. He's going to Saudi Arabia to take part in the very famous Hajj, which is one of the most important things for Muslim men in the world, to once in a lifetime take part in the pilgrimage in Mecca, where millions of Muslims take part. Muslim men take part each and every year. So Henry travels, but he's behind Bam Bam, and he appears in Mecca only first being stopped by the authorities in Saudi Arabia because he wants to get into the area with the mosques and everything, the holy places, and he's not allowed to because he's not a Muslim, he's an atheist. So he has problems, and he meets a Saudi prince who happens to be, that's one of the coincidences in the novel, who happens to be a virologist. Now it would be the time to speak about Mark Bramhall's reading of the novel. I think audiobooks are so important. It's so important with audiobooks that they are read properly, because I listened to so many audiobooks that were read badly, and some of them are really great. I loved Daisy Jones and the Six. That was an amazing audiobook. I just loved it. I loved Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. That was brilliantly read. But now let's talk about the reading of The End of October by Mark Bramhall, this twice Audie awarded actor. I don't like the way at all that he reads this book. I was really very troubled by how he reads. Mr. Bramhall, maybe he was told by the director or the producer of the production of this audiobook to mimic all the foreign accents of people who speak in the dialogues of this book. Maybe he was told to do it. Mr. Bramhall, you have to mimic all the accents in a very peculiar way. So what Mark Bramhall does is he mimics Arabian accents, Indonesian accents, Spanish, Mexican accents, and I really think, maybe it's way too much, that's what I think. But Henry, back to the content of the novel, Henry and Majid, they are too late. Bam Bam has infected other pilgrims who have infected other pilgrims who have infected other pilgrims. The spread is going on. The epidemic becomes a pandemic. Meanwhile, a war breaks out between the two rivals, between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Henry says at one point when he is in Saudi Arabia to Madrid, "This is not the possible end of thousands of pilgrims. It could be the end of civilization." And then, of course, the novel becomes a page-turner, and it's super exciting, and we want to know, because we live right in a pandemic, don't we? And this is a novel about a pandemic, and I think that makes it very, for me, it made it very interesting to read and to see what happens in this fictional pandemic, and how does it stop, how does it end. I'm not going to tell you. As I arrived at the end of the novel, after like 400 pages that Mark Bramhall read for me, Congoli had killed several hundreds of millions of people, maybe 1 billion or something. Among them, rumor has it somewhere in the book, among them even celebrities like Brad Pitt and Taylor Swift. They just disappeared. Nobody knows if they're still alive. A war is raging between the two superpowers at the end of the novel, and everything is just falling apart. The whole world is falling into pieces. It's an apocalypse. It's a dystopian world that is going to be left to maybe nobody, because the next generation might not even be born. And this is way too much. This is way too much for me. It's way too much. He's like Henry Parsons, the superhero, you remember? He's the orphaned son of parents who committed suicide together with 898 other people of Americans in Guyana, in Jonestown. You remember in the early 1980s when Jim Jones had this cult, and he went with like 900 mostly Americans to Guyana, and they all took the cyanide pills and they killed themselves on the same day, and then people found 900 bodies. Henry is the son of 2 people who died there, but Henry luckily was sent to his aunt in the United States 2 months before the big suicide. The dialogue is sometimes so pathetic, it's not authentic, I don't like it, that I really moaned several times out of disbelief when I heard it. I was walking outside listening to the book all the time, and people were strangely, they were really thinking, what is this guy where he's moaning, like, oh my God, I was saying like things like this. Really. I read that Lawrence Wright, the author of The End of October, actually wrote a script for a television show. The End of October should be a television show, and someone, maybe the publishers, maybe the agent, I don't know, have told him, make a novel out of it before we do a television show about it, of it. So he wrote down the television script into a novel kind of way, and I wonder how quickly that process was realized when he was about to write a television show, as it is said on several sources on the internet, and then decided not to make a television show but a novel. This process must have been very short, because I would have redacted that manuscript a lot, because this manuscript would have needed a lot of work to be really good, to become a believable manuscript, in terms of storyline, in terms of character, and in terms of dialogue. All of this was not good work, and not even the reading of Mark Bramhall was good work. Not even his beautifully aspired pronunciation of words like where, why, and what, which he does all the time, can save this. Really, it's way too much cheese and way too much death. There's a scene when Henry returns home to the United States on a nuclear submarine. He's 6 weeks on the ocean, you know. He makes it home to Atlanta, to the house of his family, and all the communications are dead. There's no internet, there's no electricity, there's no transportation from the airport. It's just the airport, but from the airport he has to walk to Atlanta. So he goes to the house where his family has lived, and all he finds is death and destruction, and he finds 2 graves. There's no spoiler, don't worry. He falls on his knees. Henry falls on his knees and starts digging out the bodies because he wants to know what's in that grave. Are there my children? My children are there? Is there my wife in that grave? And he finds his beloved dog and he starts crying out of, as it says in the novel, out of sorrow of the dog, about the dog, and out of relief that it's not his child, that it's not his wife. That's way too much, Mr. Wright. Really, it's way too much. The good thing in the book, and that's maybe for the final 2 minutes of this video, the good thing in the book is, but it's almost the only good thing, are the more journalistic passages. There are lots of journalistic passages about viruses, about research, about the Spanish flu of 1918-19 and what happened and how it ended, about other viruses that have haunted humankind and how they come into being. All this is very, very well researched and very well written. So I thought, my God, why has Mr. Wright not written a non-fiction book about pandemics, about viruses? It would have been superb, I'm sure, because he is a great non-fiction author, really. It's well done, it's well researched, these parts of the book. He would have written a brilliant non-fiction book about pandemics. He is capable of that. Instead, he wrote a novel about pandemic, and unfortunately, he's not capable of that. Period. That was my review of Lawrence Wright's The End of October. I hope you liked it. And I hope you liked my channel, and you can subscribe to it, and you can watch my videos, you can watch other videos that are shown after this video on the right and on the left side. Thank you very much for watching. I will come back to you on Sunday with something else. See you on Sunday. Bye-bye. Stay safe.